Missionaries, especially from the Church Missionary Society. Missionaries from the Church Missionary Society and London Missionary Society. And London Missionary Society. On arrival in Africa, did much through evangelism. And spreading of Christianity. Did much through evangelism and spreading of Christianity. Against that background, therefore, did much through evangelism and spreading of Christianity. Where? By so doing, Africans were displaced. Africans were displaced from their land. Kati webuuza wana abazungu bafunawo bati okujjako tubba. Africans were displaced from their land, and at worst, African culture, was eroded. Mengo Hospital by the Church Missionary Society. Mengo Hospital by the Church Missionary Society. Nsambia Hospital by the Catholics. Helped to reduce the extent of death. Helped to reduce the extent of what? Death, especially due to malaria. Especially due to what? Malaria. Literacy levels also increased. Literacy levels increased for purposes of evangelism. Which in turn explains why Christianity was able to spread. Christianity was able to spread in Uganda, majorly around the centers of power. In Uganda, majorly around the centers of power, namely the palaces. Namely the what? The palaces. That's why you find we have here we have the Catholics. When you go to Namirembe, we have the what? The Protestants. They are all fighting to be near the Kabaka. Next. Africans learned new languages which stepped up their loss of independence, their loss of independence, which stepped up their loss of independence, through collaboration In the same way, Africans were denied unity, which was the basis for them to preserve their independence. They were denied unity, which was the basis for them to preserve their independence. It is common knowledge that we are writing. It is common knowledge that the Africans were not disunited. It is common knowledge that the Africans were not disunited as they were after the coming of missionaries. 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 Answer must flow as such. When your answer flows, you end up impressing the person reading your answer. Whatever I'm discussing, when you get out for lunch, get copies of the handouts at the entrance. Get copies of the handouts at the entrance. Let me handle the next point. As a result of missionaries did not construct the industries, but they introduced cash crops like cotton, which were raw materials in the textile what? Industry. Introduced cash crops like cotton, which were raw materials in the what? In the textile industry. Number next. Lastly, the values of Africans were especially the values of apathy. Especially the values of apathy. The values of what? Dulingo yagala okulyanga okola because what? That means people no longer have what? That kisa of supporting others. So that's very dangerous. Next, Africans. A point teweze tujongeremu. This explains why. This explains why child sacrifice. So lastly, what are we saying? This explains why child sacrifice, which was foreign in the families of Africa, which was what? Is on the rise. Is on the what? On the rise. Is on the rise. Is on the rise. Is on the rise. Number next. The ones who are supposed to hold life. We are writing another illustration. The ones that were supposed to hold what? Life. In the name of mothers are destroying life. Are destroying what? Life. Because of higher costs of living, people are aborting. Because people don't know that when you are abort, you have murdered. So, next point. The ones who are supposed to be responsible before the coming of missionaries, the ones who are supposed to be what? Responsible, have extremely become irresponsible. They have extremely become irresponsible in the name of absentee fathers. Asajja mwekubireko mu ngalo. in the name of absentee fathers, giving rise to single mothers whose life is strained, by the absence of the family heads. Did you tell that woman to print it? Next, Africans. That's our last point. Africans have what? Evaded their traditions by referring to them as satanic. This explains why there is a cultural lift. Between the elites and the traditionalists. There is a cultural lift between the elites and the traditionalists. We are going for burial. Fire! You are becoming the hair. I refuse in Jesus' name. There is a lift between the traditionalists and the elites. So that's very key. You are expected to conclude. In conclusion, different opinions exist between the Africans and the Europeans. However, what is true is the coming of missionaries and the different activities involved sanctioned